Hello and welcome to episode 24. This is all about how to optimize a funnel. How to optimize a funnel. So if you've got a funnel that you've built, doesn't necessarily have to be a sales funnel, though we're going to kind of put it in that context, or any sort of lead generation funnel. But just basically, we're talking about how to optimize the different steps between when you first get somebody onto your page and then right to that very last action that you want them to, of course, take. This is all brought to you by Seriously Simple Marketing. My name is Chris Mercer, funnel optimizer, content developer, host of Digital Marketing This Week. And yeah, just call me Mercer. Okay, so again, we're going to go back to funnel optimization. That's the whole focus topic for this week's DMTW episode. Now, if you are watching this on a pre-recorded version, or I'm sorry, pre-recorded, since we're doing it live, it's a little tough to do that. But if you're watching it on a recorded version or on a podcast or something like that, and you're not part of the insiders. What insiders is basically, you can join us live on these recordings, so you can ask questions live in the chat room. You can also, if you can't make it for whatever reason, there's a little form you can fill out where you can put your questions in. And as soon as we're done sort of this on stage stuff for a few minutes, I'll sort of jump off stage, at least the virtual stage here, and we'll go over different questions that people have. And so it's a nice little intimate gathering. And all you need to do is just go to SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. You can sign up for it there. So now your goal with this, as with all of DMTWs, we cover this every week, but it's important. You get one idea, you act on that one idea, then you go back and you get another idea. If you try to do all of these things at the same time, it's just not going to work for you. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to end up getting sort of this paralysis by analysis, and it's just not worth it. So get your one idea that you kind of go like, oh, you know what, that seemed the easiest for me to implement, then implement it, right? Actually take action on it, then go back and get another one. So let's jump in. Funnel optimization. So we're going to talk about how to optimize your sales funnel. Okay, and this is sort of a basic idea of what a funnel looks like. And what we're really wanting to bring to head here is a few different key points. So paying attention today, this is sort of what you're going to get. One is the question that I think all great optimizers ask themselves. It is probably the most important question I ever ask myself personally. So you're going to get that. You're going to cover some basic steps on how to start optimizing so that you can make sure that you've got optimization down. And then you're going to find out why most conversion attempts fail. So why most people that are trying to always optimize and convert, why they end up just sort of falling on their face and things don't really move forward as fast as possible. And more, obviously. But the one thing that I didn't put on here that I want to communicate is that hopefully by the end of this brief time that we have together today, I want to make sure that you are looking at conversions differently than when you walked into it, because there are some things with conversions that when you just sort of adjust how you look at them, this whole new world opens up. Things get a whole lot easier, and hopefully this will help. So here we go. What are conversions? Now, you might typically think about your sales funnel as something like this, and this is sort of generic, but you've got suspects. So these are people who may or may not be interested in your product. Then you've got prospects. It's people that have sort of raised their hands saying, yeah, I might be interested. Then you've got leads that people have basically said, yes, go ahead and contact me. You've got permission to go back and forth. And then ultimately that would lead to some sort of customer relationships. That's a very general idea of what a funnel is. Now, when it comes to online marketing or digital marketing, this is kind of what we think about. We think about, okay, we're going to advertise, and that could be anywhere from, we say advertising is going to cover anything that's traffic. So SEO, paid advertising, Facebook, doesn't really matter, anything and anything. So moving on, they might have an opt-in, so they go from your ad, they click on your ad, they go to the opt-in, and so people start focusing on the opt-in step, how to make the opt-in work, or how to make the offer after the opt-in, right? Or the purchase, how do I get them to actually purchase the offer? How do I get them to take the upsell or the downsell? If their thank you page has like a registration step or something like that. And then for follow-up, what do I do? And you've got all these different conversion steps. So the advertised conversion, the conversion to opt-in, the conversion to offer, the conversion to the purchase. So this is actually why most conversions fail. And it might seem a little surprising because this is very typical for what people think are the different steps in your marketing. But I'm here to tell you that these are not the steps that are going on in your prospect's mind. They're not going on in the market's mind. So what actually happens is it's something like this. I'm going to take the same graphic. I'm just going to change the words on this. So what conversions really are is something like this. They first have to notice your ad. They're on Facebook, or they're have some sort of, browsing on the web or whatever, and then they notice your ad. Let's assume you're doing a paid ad in this case. So you've got to do something with that ad to get them to notice it. Then once they notice that there is an ad there, and a lot of this times that's kind of up to the publisher platform where the ad is, and then how much contrast do you have with that ad, right? And this in terms of your color, and then as to where it is in the page. And that's where you see people that do this stuff where they have the little dancing silhouettes for the weight loss ads or for the insurance ads. What some dancing silhouette have to do with saving insurance? It has nothing to do with it. But the animation is what gets you to notice the ad. So then you've got to get to the next conversion, right? And we're still on advertising. So the next conversion is getting interest. And then they've kind of got to go, yeah, okay, I noticed the ad. And then that very quickly has to grab their interest, save up to $75 a month on insurance. Okay, so let's assume that they're in that market. Say it's now there's some interest there. They're continuing to read the ad. And this happens in nanoseconds, right? This is super fast, but these are the conversion steps. So they just noticed your ad, they sort of nodded to it, they get interest in it, they're starting like, okay, yeah, I'm interested in that. You can kind of imagine that these people are if you really slow down this process, you would imagine how they're looking at this going, yes, this is something that interests me. You can feel them sort of nodding with it. Then you've got a guide action. So the guiding action part is sort of that call to action. It's that part where you're like, okay, great, save up to $75, get your free, insurance assessment or free insurance quote or, no hassle, whatever. And that's the guide to action. Then you got to get, and they kind of go like, yeah, okay, I would like that. Then you got to get them to click. So you got to make it apparent what they need to do and what the next action is. So in this case, it would be clicking on the ad. Once they click on the ad, conversions obviously don't stop, but now you're sort of moved off that advertising step, and now you're on this what we call confirmation phase. And that confirmation phase, once they go from the insurance ad, right, we're using this as an example, if they go from that insurance ad to a page that has nothing to do with insurance, right? Let's just say worst case scenario, has nothing to do with insurance. It's like a bait and switch. They're going to bounce off that page because it doesn't confirm, that page didn't confirm that they're on the right spot. So when they come to this insurance quote with the dancing silhouette and everything sort of looks like it does, it comes to a page that kind of looks in that same sort of style, and it offers them the insurance assessment, and here's what they need to do now to do the insurance assessment, right? That's sort of a confirmation of, yes, I'm in the right place. So the very first thing is, am I still safe? I clicked on the ad, I opened up a page, is it still safe, right? To stay here? Yes, we're gonna confirm that it is. Once that happens again, now that page has to get their interest. Okay, let's talk about that health assessment or the insurance assessment. This is what you're going to get, right? Here are the benefits of this assessment. Here's maybe a sample of what it looks like. Here's how long it'll take. All that sort of copy points. These are all getting interest. And then you go through and you guide action. What do you need to do? You need to enter in, take this brief survey or enter in these details or put in your name and email if it's an opt-in, something like that, and so forth and so on. So the whole point of this is to keep in mind it's nods. You need to convert nods. And the way I think about it personally is, again, you sort of slow this whole process down. Just this part, right? Just this little part here on the top, these first few, I guess, let's say 4.5 steps, because confirmation page has a little bit to do with the advertising step too. But this advertising section, these are the nods that are just for advertising, right? Whereas this step, people just think, okay, well, I need to convert my ads. I got to make my ads convert more. Well, you really don't need to make your ads convert better. What you need to do is either figure out, is it that they're not noticing them? Is it that the ad isn't getting interest? Is the ad just not telling them what to do? Is the ad not getting clicks? Like, actually, is it hard to figure out what they need to do, right? That's the guide action, get click. Or is the ad just mismatched to the page where the confirmation step is? And if you're missing any of those nods, your ad will not convert. It just, or at least it won't convert as well as it could. So when you're going through and you're figuring out what do I need to optimize, think about it in terms of nods. What are the little tiny baby steps somebody has to go through? And there's a lot of them. There is an enormous amount of them. But if you slow down and you consider what those steps are, you will find optimization gets a ton easier. So very first thing to sort of hopefully pull you out of this sort of standard, like, oh, I need my opt-in page to work better. Well, you probably don't. What you need is to figure out which part of your opt-in page isn't working, and then make that little nod better. Because somebody, what happened is they went through a couple of steps and they were nodding along with you, and then all of a sudden they went, nope, that's not me, and they left. And so you got to figure out, how do you optimize for the nods as you go through these little micro steps? So let's talk about this question that all great optimizers ask. This is it. So if this is, if you're kind of new to this, and I'd say, you want to know where even to start when it comes to optimization, this is your one idea. Always ask yourself, am I matching expectations? Am I matching expectations? And let's talk about what this means. So here's an actual ad that was on Google, right? So you go to Google and somebody's searching in bikes and looking for, you know, how to buy bikes or whatever, right? Bicycles for sale, I think is kind of what I had searched for when I pulled this one up. So look at this for a little bit, and let's assume it got your interest, right? And then you're looking at it, so it gets your interest, and you're like, okay, yes, it's bikes, and it's relevant to the search that I did, so it got my notice. Let's say I noticed it, then I got interest. Interest was bikes up to 60%. Okay, like that's interesting to me. I know it's at bikesdirect.com, so it's probably a relevant site. That's good. Looks like it's got high ratings, which is awesome. So now it's already, the ad's already starting to pre-frame the next page, right? Pre-frame the business. I know that they're new bicycles, okay, which is interesting because I didn't necessarily think they would be used bicycles, but maybe that was a thing. And then full factory warranty, fine, that's cool. Buy direct, so now I'm kind of buying direct from the manufacturer. I'm feeling like I'm getting that wholesale, you know, safe, big, free shipping, all the sort of main ideas that, with maybe the exception of the new bicycles, I'm not so sure about that one. But either way, it's here's the idea, right? So I get noticed, I get interest. I'm kind of like, yeah, this is cool. Now, there isn't necessarily anything that says click here, and with AdWords stuff, you can't say that. You can't have a direct call to action. It's apparent when, or it should be apparent, or it's implied, I guess, that when you're on the search engines that you're clicking on different links, and ads are just one of those links, and they work really well. So let's just assume the get click part happens. Now, you're about to click. Let's play this little imaginary game. Let's say you're in the market for a bike. You see this ad, it gets your interest. You kind of go, yep, you walk through it, you say, this sounds interesting to me, and you're about to click. Now stop yourself right at this point and go, what do I expect to happen now? What are my expectations here? So you're going to click, you're going to go to a page. We all know that, right? You're going to go to a web page. What's that web page going to look like? And I know it's a little tough because you're going to go like, well, I have no idea. It could look like a million things, but what would you want it to look like? You're in the market for a bicycle. What would you want this web page to look like based on what this ad is telling you? And so some of the things, I've actually done this exercise before with live groups as well. And some of the things we hear back are, oh, well, you know, I want it to show, I mean, the big headline is bikes up to 60%. So clearly there's some sort of sale. I want to see what these 60% off bikes look like. You might see something that, you know, maybe emphasizes some, you know, warranty or shipping. But overall, the big thing we keep hearing is 60% off, 60% off, 60% off, because that's what the headline is, right? It's going after a price buyer. So you want to see something about sale, something about, you know, the 60% off, maybe there's a time limit, you know, and then which types of bikes do they have for sale? And that's pretty much what you're going there for. You're going there to confirm, you would expect that the page will have something about 60% off, or we probably focused on that it would be the, you know, a listing of the bicycles that they have. And so you can kind of go through and see which ones that might be interesting to you, right? Okay, so now we're going to click to the actual page. I'm going to show you, so hopefully you've got a picture of that in your head. I'm going to show you now what the actual page looks like. This is true. So you come through here and you go, okay, so there's a lot of stuff on this page. This is the actual landing page. And this page does mention something about the 60% off. In fact, it's right here, this little tiny piece of text in this mess of text. You've got all this stuff here. So this is the landing page. Now, does it at all match the expectations? I mean, it does somewhat. It is Bikes Direct, right? So it is their landing page. It does technically have the 60% off on there, even though it's not quite the same headline. And it's very small, and it's not prominent, and it definitely doesn't pop from the page. What really pops on the page are this whole like hot summer sales, right? So hot summer sales and free ship 48, which I assume means 48 states, but it's a weird way of saying it. So hot summer sales, right? Site-wide savings, hot deals. You see this big giant graphic up top, but it has nothing to do with the initial headline. So right there is actually a disconnect, right? It's not quite meeting expectations. You were prepped for the 60% off to be sort of the main idea. Now it's like hot summer sales, which admittedly is related, but it's not exactly the same. Then you come through and you go, okay, well, you want to take a look at what the bike is. And if you would able to go to this page, you can scroll up and down. There's just hundreds of these bikes that look kind of like this. It's very difficult to find stuff, very difficult to find stuff. And so you've got this page that's talking about all these e-opinions things. You've got Accredited Business Bureau. You've got that it's a Norton secured site. Like all you want to do is find a bike. And you have all this stuff that is distracting you from the one thing that you really want to try to do, which is just find a bike. That's it. So you're coming to the page to find a bike. You want to confirm that it was a sale, that there was a 60% off sale, and you want to find a bike. That's all this page should do. But look at all the stuff that it tries to do. And in doing so, this dramatically hurts conversions because there's no focus here. Somebody can click on practically anywhere on that page and get to something else. There are hundreds of extra links that shouldn't be there. So this is an example of, am I matching expectations, right? So remember, when you're doing this, the whole point when you're going through your own funnel is, if you're doing advertising, let's say it's a Facebook ad, and you click on the Facebook ad and it goes, great. Now that I'm about to click on this ad, what do I expect to happen? I would expect that I'm going to go to a page and it's going to ask me for my name and email. Maybe that's what your Facebook ad preps them for. But if they're not expecting that and they go to a page that asks them for their name and email, there's an issue there, right? So when you're doing your funnel optimization, when you're thinking about your terms optimizations, think in terms of nods and think about those expectations in between each nod. And this is, again, where it gets, you have to sort of slow down this whole process, right? Thinking, go back to our ad we were talking about, you're going to start with that initial nod of getting noticed. Okay, yes, I notice you. And now it's, okay, I'm going to get interest. Now that I have interest, what do I expect? Well, I expect that it would tell me what to do next. Okay, well, now that I know what to do, I'm going to expect, I need to take what action I'm supposed to take. And it'll, ask to click. Now that I click, I'm going to expect that's going to come to a page that's relevant to what the ad was. And now that I'm on that page, it's got to get my interest again and go through the whole process and have me nodding along with it. And then once I'm ready to buy, it's got to make it easy. It's got to tell me, what am I going to get and what actions am I supposed to take and what do I click here? And it's a surprisingly large amount of pages that don't do that, because we write them from our own perspective as marketers, right? And we need to look at it from the completely opposite side, which is the marketers, the market itself, right? Not our perspective, but the market's perspective. So when you're doing this, think about in terms of connecting the dots, right? You got it from A to B. You got all these little nods in between. A might be advertising, B might be getting your opt-in, but you got all these little dots that are in between, and you have to consider each one of those dots. Just go through and think about it. Am I matching expectations? Okay, great. Now they said yes to this step. What would they expect to happen next? What would be a natural thing for them to expect? And the more that you do that, the smoother the process goes. In optimization, you hear a lot about friction, you hear a lot about distraction, you hear a lot about anxiety, and that you want to reduce all these things, right? This is how you do it. You just basically break it down into these little tiny baby steps, which we call nods, right? So you're literally getting their head to go like, yes, I like that, let's move forward. Yes, I like that, let's move forward. And every time you do that nod, as long as you're matching expectations in between all these different dots, right? In between the dots here, the less guessing they have to do, the better it is for you. Absolutely will work like that. So let's talk about some basic optimization steps. So basic optimization steps. And again, we'll have some time left over if you're in the insiders for some Q&A. So make sure you have those ready if you've got any. The basic steps for this. First, define your nods. Remember, these are the individual steps that are on your page. So if you're going through let's use a sales page for that. You know what, let's not. Let's use, let's do a sales page, because I'm sure a lot of you have got those. So you come to, let's say, a landing page, and let's assume that it was a perfect match for the ad. Okay, so we already have that. So that's not a problem. The ad, whatever the traffic source was that drove traffic to this page, was a perfect match, great expectations, that's fit. So they're good there. You've officially converted on that step. So now with those nods out of the way, you've got sales page nods. So let's talk about what those might be. So on a sales page, you've come to the headline, right? That's the initial sort of getting the interest again, because once you know that you're on the same sort of page and it matches, you've matched the expectation, the ad's done, it's out of their head. They don't think about it anymore. Now you got to get their interest again to get them to go through your copy on your sales page. And let's assume this is long form copy of some sort. But same concept if it's a VSL. So you're going to go through and a video sales letter, for those of you who don't know what that VSL is. So when you come to the page, you've got the headline that's going to get their interest. Now you're pre-framing already what to expect the rest of that page based on that headline. So as soon as they read that headline, they get interested, and they've already made an assessment as to what the rest of the page is going to talk about based on that headline. This is an important step because people don't realize this. They just think, oh, I'm supposed to get the headline, then they're going to bounce down. What they don't realize is once I've read that headline, my brain has already created a good idea of what this page is all about. And if you look at a lot of Ryan Deiss's stuff and the stuff they do over at Digital Marketer with their funnels, it is really well written. And what tends to happen is they're coming from a lot of email traffic because they do a lot of email marketing. They also do a lot of Facebook marketing. But if you're coming from an email that talks about, hey, I've got this great thing, you got to check it out. And it's a way to do this, this, and this. Then I go to a page that is a lander page, might have a VSL on it, and the page says, okay, here's the thing, here's what it's going to do. Let me show you how it's going to work. You know, it's about this, this, and this. I'm already making all these judgments. I'm ahead of them. I'm ahead of their copy, right? As I'm going through the copy, I'm already going, okay, well, I like the headline. Yes, it confirmed that I'm interested in whatever the new gadget is. And, you know, yes, it's something that's this train, let's say it's a training program. So this training program, yes, it's interesting. It's something I want to learn. You know, so I've got that from the headline. And people don't read copy top to bottom, as I'm sure you know, they scan it so that the copy's written. So I'm hitting the main bullet points, and it's literally guiding me through this process. As I'm being guided through the process, the other thing I'm doing is I'm determining value. So so I'm waiting for that. So there's that next nod. Like, is this worth it? I'm going to have to ask myself that question. So what they're doing in their copies, they'll start talking about, now you could go out and spend, you know, $25,000, have somebody professionally do this. I've done it before. It's a total waste of money. You know, then I found another source that was a lot cheaper. It was only $2,000, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're planting all these little seeds in their copy. That's because of that nod, right? They're looking to get that nod on when I go, is this value? Is it worth it? Then I go, yep, because they've already put all that stuff in the copy. So when I'm going through that part, again, reading through the sales line, when the time comes, they say, hey, this thing is $27. I'm like, that's a no-brainer. Like, all I'm doing is nodding the entire way through the entire process. It's a really clean copy, really well-written, clean copy, because it just focuses on the nods and then just answers those as I go through. So I don't ever go like, I wonder, like I see copy that makes bold claims sometimes, and you make these bold claims, people start going, well, I wonder if that's true. That's not a nod, that's doubt. Right? That's a shaking your head no at that point. So if you have bold claims, just put something in your page that backs them up. According to such and such study, this, and that, right? So at least, okay, there's some credibility there. And people go, okay, well, that makes sense, and they'll nod along with you. But if you just say a bold claim, people won't. So that's just an example of it. Again, when we talk to building value, you know, that's a lot of the issues with price that people will have. You want to make sure that you're doing the whole, I mean, this is a technique. Everyone talks about the whole contrasting price, and you do this higher price and you anchor prices higher. But the reason that you do these higher anchoring of prices, the reason you say something like, you know, oh, you could do private coaching for $4,000 a month, but instead this is only $10. The reason you do that $4,000 a month up front, you start talking about that, is because that $10 price feels a lot smaller. But that's sort of like a psychological trick, and it works. But the reason behind that reason is because you want the nod, because you want them to go, because they will absolutely ask, is this worth it? Should I click on the buy button right now? Right? So should I click on the buy button? Not should I buy it? That's the different page. That's the cart page. But should I want to buy this right now? Does it have value? And then when they do that, you get all these different nods on the sales page. You've clicked yes, add to cart, or buy now, or download this, or whatever the call to action is. Then they go to the cart page, and the process starts all over again. And that's when people start asking themselves questions like, is this a secure site? Is my credit card information going to get stolen? Am I going to get spammed? Am I going to be on some list that I can't get rid of? What if I don't even like this? I forgot what the return policy was. Should I go back to the sales page to look at, or do you have a copy of your return policy on your cart page? You know, what's the guarantee? That should also be in your cart page. Because if people go back to your sales page to go find that stuff out, now they're already sort of out of whack. They're going out of the flow. And so you've got less chance to convert them. So it's things like that, defining the nods, slowing down your process, and going step by very small baby step. What are people thinking? What could they be thinking? How do I get them to keep nodding yes as they go through this process? Next up is, again, matching expectations. This is huge. So the nods is slightly more advanced. It might not feel like it, because it feels like it's kind of simple, but there are hundreds of them. And so it's so easy to get overwhelmed, like, oh my God, how far down do I need to go with nods? So just focus maybe on matching expectations. And even if you do something like, does my ad, right? We go back to our example of that bikes. Does the ad, when I click on it, is what I expect to happen happening, right? So I clicked on that ad expecting 60% off bike sale, and I got a load of junk, like a whole bunch of stuff. So I went back, right? You go back to the search engine, you find other ones that have a cleaner interface, maybe some ones that have filters. I think for that real life example, it was Wayfair that I ended up on, and Wayfair had a search filter where it was like, okay, what kind of bike do you want? Like, yes, they're 60% off, and what kind of bike do you want? And it was clean, it was great. Because I didn't care what other people were saying. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just wanted to see if they even have a bike I was interested in. And then I'll talk about maybe thinking about reviews and what other people are saying and what their policies are and all that other stuff. But if they don't have anything I'm interested in, what's the point? I'm not even asking those questions. Who cares? So again, matching expectations. The other thing is when you think about your cart pages. So they go from the sales page to a cart page. If I go to the cart page, is it matching my expectations? I would expect a cart to be secure. Is that secure? I know some well-known marketers who have done pages where they are not secure, right? And that's something that will hurt conversions, especially because if you're like me, you use things like LastPass or these password fillers, and all the websites will start warning you like, hey, this is not a secure page, right? And that blows trust for marketers. So you got to make sure that it's a secure page. You got to make sure that there's badging, trust associated to it. And this is where that, if you remember that other Bikes Direct page had the Norton thing up there with protected by Norton, which is awesome. It's a great thing to have, just not at that step. It could be on the cart page when you're about to check out, because that's when people really care about that. Again, we talked about having expectations of what the policy is for returns, or how easy is it to cancel if it's a recurring subscription or something like that. So the questions that people would ask, this is what you're going to put on your and answer on your cart page. And then after your cart page, again, let's go to the upsell. Right? We talk about how to make the upsells convert better. Well, the upsell, the perfect upsell, is something that addresses a new problem you will have now that you've bought the original offer in general. So that's what upsells do. So if your upsell comes across like, oh, well, you bought it, you thought you bought the complete solution, but now you have to buy this upsell to get the complete solution, then people are just going to be upset. It's not going to make sense to them. They're going to feel ripped off. But if you frame your upsell, which it should be, if you frame your upsell as, hey, you bought that, thanks for buying whatever widget that you just bought, and it's great and it's going to work perfectly on its own. However, now that you have this widget, you're going to also be able to do this, right? Have 27 times the productivity that you were before. But now that you have all this productivity, you are going to need to figure out how to run your calendar better. And so we've got this program that helps you with that. And so that's kind of an upsell flow, and it matches expectations. People kind of go like, okay, I get it. It makes sense that this is here now. It doesn't hurt the original purchase, doesn't cannibalize the original purchase. So that's all the matching expectations is. Okay, so again, the one thing, if you think about it, this is the question to ask yourself over and over and again. Am I matching expectations? Am I matching the expectations? All right, next up, measure and test everything. Very important. Measure and test everything. Don't guess. Don't follow my advice. Don't follow somebody else's best practice advice. Don't follow somebody who says, do this every time. It works. It's awesome. It's worked for us. Who cares? You measure everything and you test everything. So you set up Google Analytics. We got the whole series on Google Analytics in previous DMTW episodes. If you want to go through, and we did a whole 5-part series on those. So you can learn plenty about analytics, and then you split test, and we'll do some upcoming stuff on that. But you can use things like Visual Website Optimizer, which is super cheap now. Actually, if you do low traffic sites, they came out with a super cheap $9 offer, which is awesome. So check them out. They're great. And you test and you do these split tests. And so what you'll do is, when you're optimizing a funnel, you'll come up with a hypothesis. Let's say we're talking on the opt-in form, and the hypothesis might be people are coming to the ad, but they're bouncing. I have let's say there's a 10% opt-in rate, and I really think I should be able to get 30 or 40%. So on a 10% opt-in rate, something's clearly going wrong. They're coming from the ad, they're coming to the page, there's an expectation that's not being matched. And so I go back and let's say I change the call to action. Right, so I don't just put the form on there, but I put a button, and we do a 2-step opt-in. One of those ones that you can build with OptimizePress that says, click here to get started, and then you click here and it pops up into the opt-in with a little progress bar. And you're thinking, okay, well, that's what I want to do. I want to slow down the process. So I don't want them to come to a page where they see name and email right away. I want to convince them that there's value for putting in their name and email. And that's what I will know that I'm doing, because when they click on that download button and that little pop-up pops up on let's say this is a variation that you're doing, that is confirming that, yes, I'm interested. And then now that they've double confirmed that they're interested, then they're putting in their name and email. That's what they would expect. So match the expectations better, but you test those. You don't just do it. You don't just do it because you read somewhere on a blog that 2 steps work better, because they don't always work better. It just depends upon your situation. It depends upon how you implement them. Sometimes it makes more sense to just keep the blog up, the regular email form up there, the regular opt-in form up there instead of a 2-step, because more people see the opt-in form. Because again, the only people that are seeing the new opt-in form would be ones that are clicking on the button. So, so stuff like that. So make sure you measure and test. Don't guess. Don't go with your gut. You can go with your gut for variations, which is fine. Get some ideas, but then you test those ideas so that you know for a fact that it is actually helping you. And with that, we are right at about 30 minutes, which is where we want to keep these. So it's doing quite nicely here. So think about your one idea. Was it the nods? The idea of the nods and all those little baby steps and sub commitments or adoption or micro commitments, all these different terms are used, but it's basically that, these little tiny steps in between the big steps. Was it matching expectations? Making sure that in between these steps, are you matching the expectations? Not only in between the major steps, but also in between each individual nod that's between those. Was it just the idea of testing? Because if you aren't doing that and you're just following along because somebody said use an orange button and that's what you should do, test the idea. It's very, very cheap to get testing started now. So it's super easy. You don't even need a developer to do it. You just put some script on your page. It's really, really basic, works great for WordPress sites. So testing is definitely something you want to start doing if you're not already. And remember, action brings results. So if you're not quite sure on the whole nods thing, because there's a little bit, and you're not quite sure, do you have all the nods down? Not a problem. Start with matching expectations. Do the major steps first, and then break it down from there and go, okay, what are the steps they're actually thinking about as they go through my ad? From the point they notice it to the point they click on it, they go through a process. What could that process look like? And am I addressing those? Right? And same thing on your sales page. What's the process they're going through from the time they land on the page and notice it to the time that they actually click on whatever the call to action is. So, and then what are the different steps in between, and how can I better match expectations in between those? So take those match results or match expectations the best you can, then move on and go to nods or something else a little more complicated. And then ultimately, again, you want to start making sure that you test. So again, if you're watching this on a recorded version, not a problem. Just go to SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. You can join us live because I'm about to jump off the virtual stage here and then address any questions that people have. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us for episode number 24, How to Optimize a Funnel.